After 10 generations, the ultimate Note is finally here. Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again. And here it is guys, the phone I've been waiting to share with you, the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Now, as a long-time Note user, I've been covering Note series phones from the Note 6 to the 7 to the 8 to the 9, and now we have the Note 10 series, which I think may be the best series yet. And coming at a price that will be announced at tomorrow's event, I have no doubt this Note 10 series is going to continue pushing on this ultimate price to performance value that every Note series phone has been known for. But why is this Note 10 Pro so special, and why do I consider this possibly the best Note series phone and one of the best Redmi phones of all time? Let's have a look. But before we go into the review, let's have a look at the unboxing. Talking about design, at 8.1 millimeters, 193 grams, this phone is a very comfortable weight considering some of the others on the market, and I've been using this Redmi Note 10 Pro in this onyx gray color, but we also have a glacier blue and glacier bronze, which looks stunning. And around the phone, you immediately notice, yes, the edge is plastic, but it's done in a very nice way with glossy edges on the sides and then a matte flat edge on the top. At the top here, you see a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and a dual speaker. That's right, a dual dedicated top speaker on this Redmi Note 10 Pro. And the buttons are very clicky, including the new ARC fingerprint sensor, but overall with a very small chin on the bottom and officially the smallest punch hole that I've ever seen on any phone, to the distinctive camera module on the back, which I really do like. Redmi has delivered a really well-built design in this Redmi Note 10 Pro. But as much as I love the design, the one aspect of this phone that really makes it miraculous is the display. For the first time ever, guys, we are getting an AMOLED display on a Redmi Note series phone. But not just any AMOLED display. Redmi could have rested on their laurels and delivered a 60 Hz refresh rate on this Note 10 Pro, but no, they went for the moon and then some, delivering a 6.67-inch AMOLED dot-drop display at 120 Hz with DCI-P3 and HDR10 support, 1200 nits of peak brightness. This display is an absolute game changer. And I couldn't believe it when I took this phone out of the box that I was looking at what is practically the same display that is being used in Redmi's China K40 series, the K40 and K40 Pro. This is an AMOLED display. This is like a mid-range Redmi K40 Pro. Wow, they did it. They actually did it. From the buttery smooth interface to terrific viewing angles and a display, because it's OLED, that allows for these inky blacks that you can just completely appreciate, and this display just enhances everything you do on this phone, from watching videos to playing games. It's been an absolute joy, and the tiny centered punch hole really just disappears when you're using it. Guys, this is truly a flagship display that Redmi has included in this Redmi Note 10 Pro. And it is hands down the most important upgrade we've been waiting for. I normally wouldn't find reasons to recommend a phone just based on one spec alone, but if there's one reason you would upgrade to this series, this display is it. And in DRM info, of course we see it, it's L1 on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, so you'll have HD Netflix support on this phone. It's an L1 party here on Frankie Tech. And talking about performance, we have the Snapdragon 732G with 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage with an 8 gig option available in certain markets. And yes, you could argue that performance is probably the most middling part of this phone, especially because this phone using the 732G does not have 5G on board. And yet, what other great phone was released with this chipset that I considered a great mid-range performer? The Poco X3 NFC. And with an emphasis on gaming, I think this phone is able to manage any game you throw at it and is still one of the best mid-range performing chipsets on the market. And with an NT2 score near 300,000 in my testing, this is very much in line with all the great mid-range phones that we're still seeing being released today. Now yes, would it have been nice to see a Snapdragon 750 or 765 on this phone? Of course it would have been. But if I had to sacrifice this display for a slightly more powerful mid-range chipset, I would not do it. I'm very happy with the performance of this Redmi Note 10 Pro. It is still a very seamless and buttery smooth experience. And this Redmi Note 10 Pro continues with a great battery capacity, just like the previous Note 9 series generation, with a 5020 mAh battery and 33 watt fast charging, which brought me from 0 to 100% in around an hour and 15 minutes. It's not mind-blowing charging speeds, but it's very much in line from a lot of the other phones we see at this price point. And even at 120 Hz, battery life has been terrific on this Redmi Note 10 Pro. I'm easily lasting a day, and of course, if you want to preserve more battery, you can always switch to 60 Hz, but I find even at max settings, this phone will get me through the day, no problems. And talking about the fingerprint scanner, we have a side-mounted arc fingerprint scanner, which means that the scanner is actually curved and it fits the contours of the edge of this phone. And I have no complaints with this fingerprint scanner. It works really well. Now, I will say though, it is a bit strange not having an in-display fingerprint scanner on an AMOLED display device, but I honestly think maybe Redmi was just trolling all the leaksters out there who, when they saw the side-mounted scanner, just insisted that this had to be an LCD display. And this scanner works just as well, maybe even better than the Mi 10T series scanner, and I have no issues with it whatsoever. And the vibration motor on this Redmi Note 10 Pro is also solid. I wouldn't put it to the level of the Mi 10T Pro or the Mi 11s, but they definitely haven't skimped on this vibration motor. I think it's offering really precise and accurate feedback at this price point. And talking about comms, you'll have all the latest support on this Redmi Note 10 Pro, including dual SIM support, SD card support, NFC, IR Blaster, USB-C, and bands 20 and 28 support as well. Now, of course, the one thing you could argue against this device is that there's no 5G, and there are phones now delivering 5G at around the same price point. But let me ask you, how important is 5G to you currently? I currently own an iPhone 12 Pro Max, and I've actually turned off 5G on that phone for now because it is killing the battery of that phone. I still think we're about a generation away from when 5G radios will be more efficient and will not be as heavy on battery life. And for that reason, I think in many markets, 4G is still a very viable solution, and I'm glad that they chose to sacrifice something like 5G to be able to get a lot of other great flagship features on this Redmi Note 10 Pro. And now it's time for the audio speaker test. And yes, we have dual speakers on this Redmi Note 10 Pro with a fully dedicated top speaker here. It is so great to see Redmi following in the flagship phones that Xiaomi produces by delivering a fully dedicated dual speaker. But how are the dual speakers of this Redmi Note 10 Pro? Well, I pitted this against the Xiaomi Mi 11, my current champ for dual speakers. Let's have a listen. So all in all, guys, maybe not to the level of the Mi 11s, but it's pretty close. And just the fact that that's the case, this is an incredible achievement for this Redmi Note 10 Pro, offering quality dual speakers with high-res certification. And yes, you still have a 3.5mm headphone jack on this phone. I think you're gonna love the audio and speaker experience of this Redmi Note 10 Pro. And as if the display wasn't already flagship enough, Redmi has brought another flagship level component to this phone in the primary f1.9 108 megapixel camera on this Redmi Note 10 Pro. And this should be the same main camera that we've seen on a lot of previous Redmi phones, including the Redmi Note 9 Pro 5G, the Mi 10 series, and the Mi 10i. And in my testing, it is just so great that we finally have a 108 megapixel main camera on a Redmi Note series phone. But we also get an 8 megapixel ultra-wide f2.2 with 118 degrees field of view, a 5 megapixel telemacro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. And you have a 16 megapixel f2.5 front camera on this Redmi Note 10 Pro. And so far, I've really enjoyed the cameras, offering very crisp, very clear results, and really great low light capability. But don't take my word for it, guys. Have a look at these samples and hit me up in the comments. What do you think? And this is 1080p 30 video on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and you can definitely tell this is stabilized. Pretty good EIS stabilization here. But hit me up in the comments, what do you think? This is rear-facing video on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, shooting in 4K 30 FPS. Looks pretty good. I don't think there's any stabilization though at 4K. Look at this beautiful spot here, coming to 6 p.m. here in Hong Kong. Hit me up in the comments, what do you think? And this is front-facing video on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, shooting in 1080p 30 FPS, no 60 FPS on this phone. And guys, big shout out to Redmi. This punch hole is the smallest punch hole I've ever seen on any phone. You barely notice it, and stabilization looks alright as well. But listen to the mics here, how they sound, and hit me up in the comments, what do you think? So that's it for this video and my final verdict on this Redmi Note 10 Pro. When you look at this phone, from the design to the solid build quality, these incredible dual speakers, Snapdragon 732G performance, all the latest comms, battery life that should go for a day and a half or 2 days, and cameras including a near flagship level 108 megapixel main camera on this phone, you have a very well-rounded device in this Redmi Note 10 Pro. And just for those reasons, I could easily give this phone an 8 out of 10, but Redmi did not stop there. They took a great device and they made it fantastic by delivering something we've been waiting for on this Note series for the longest time, and that is having an AMOLED display on a Note series device. Well, Redmi not only brought AMOLED, they also brought 120 Hz, and they have just knocked it out of the park by delivering these two flagship level specs on a Note series phone. Once you combine this incredible new display with all of the other feature sets, you have, in my opinion, a phone that is in the running for best mid-range phone of 2021, and it is, in my opinion, the best Redmi Note series phone of all time. But hit me up in the comments. What are your thoughts on this Redmi Note 10 Pro? Are you as surprised by this release as I am. Guys, I've been so wanting to share this device because I knew how important a device this is in the history of Redmi Note series phones, and I think you can see now why that was the case. But hit me up in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up, and if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for future updates. Thanks once again to Redmi for sending this one out. A true champ of a device, the Redmi Note 10 Pro. So that's it, and this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech, signing off. Have a good one. I'm not messing around, guys. This phone is that good.